Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of the SGP Podcast. I'm here with Benett Sullivan from Spider-Man Alone. How are you doing, Benett?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here, man. Very
It's
excited.
great having you, man. So let's get right into it. So Spider-Man Alone, it's a very interesting series that I've been following along. What was your idea for the homemade suit? Because it's one of the best homemade suits that I've seen, like created.
Yeah. We if you everyone that's tuning in now, if you want to go to Golden Century Films, that's our YouTube channel. We actually just put out a video not too long ago on how we made the homemade suit and kind of a little bit of like the lore behind it. But to sum that all up, pretty much it was comic book artists like Lee Bermejo and Gabriel Del Otto that really inspired kind of what a Spider-Man suit would look like. It just was the way that they drew the suit, and it felt like it was on a body and not the body. And so that really was artistically from the comics kind of what inspired me, and especially Steve Ditko. Like a lot of our season that you'll find out when you watch it is based on those early 60s first set of comics from Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. So comic book wise, those people. And then I had to translate that into live action still. So I've always been a part of the kind of Spider-Man community, just a little bit more in the background, right? As a fan
Yeah.
and not as a creator. And being in the community, you stumble on people like Spider PNG, known as Spider Boy, and other cosplay people who are doing that very thing. They're taking sweaters and sweatpants and they're making a Spider-Man suit out of it. And immediately when I saw that, I was like, that's exactly what Peter would do. Like his first suit would be his clothes, you know what I mean? Would be clothes that he could either get at Goodwill, not sponsored, or clothes he had in his closet already, right? Sweatpants, sweatshirts, those types of things that are affordable enough that he could rip them up, you know, they could get dirty and he could replace the suit cost effectively. So to me, for the tone of our series, if you kind of see what we're going for, that made the most sense. That was the most practical way Spider-Man suit could exist right now.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I noticed about your series. It's very unique in what it's trying to be. And I really love the suit, and I love how you added the wraps on his hands. I thought that was so cool because you don't really see that. The only other time I've seen it on a superhero would be Daredevil.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool when I saw it. I was like, that is such like a genius thing to do, is add the wraps.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then so Chameleon's your season 1 villain, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what made you choose Chameleon? Because Chameleon's a very interesting and cool choice to do for a first season.
Yeah. So any comic book lovers out there will know that Chameleon is actually Spider-Man's first villain. If you look at the comics after his origin story, in Amazing Spider-Man, when they start that off after Amazing Fantasy, Chameleon is the first antagonist that he faces. And not only is that appealing to me because we haven't seen Chameleon done yet, right? In like live action, we've never seen that. But also it's this attraction to him and the fact that he's kind of like this like sub-tier villain, right? Like because he's not as popular as like Kraven or Venom or Goblin. So he's a little bit less known in that regard. And he's also a little bit like, let's just say like underdeveloped in the sense of when you want to compare it to other villains, right? He doesn't have superpowers. He's this Russian spy who's able to use master of disguise and practical effects and masks to, you know, hide his identity and blend in. And to me, there was something so, again, practical about that and something so attractive in the fact that we could do something that hasn't been done while also elevating a character into a place that he hasn't really been yet. Like I fully believe after season 1 comes out and everybody watches it, Chameleon will be like one of their favorite villains of all time because we're doing something with him that is so true to his character, but also allows the audience to empathize with him. And I guess the best correlation that I can have right now, because this movie just came out, is like what the Across the Spider-Verse creators did with Spot, right? What they did with the Spot, another kind of obscure villain of Spider-Man's that doesn't really have a lot of attention or knowledge around him, and yet they made him into one of the coolest and greatest villains. Like, you know, it was amazing.
Yeah, and they played him off as a little joke at first.
Yeah,
and
boom. Exactly. So like Chameleon is kind of a little bit of like the the bunt of jokes in even the Spider-Man community. And that's perfect too, because if you actually understand his story, you understand how that it's like someone's just lobbing up a ball for us to hit a home run with it. It's just perfect. He's a perfect character to start off for a young Peter Parker who's coming of age, trying to find his identity. The perfect antagonist for a kid who's trying to find his identity is an antagonist who's weaponizing identity. And so those two things thematically go together, and that's what we're looking for, because for us, the story is everything.
Are you gonna go with the practical effects of him pulling off the mask and stuff like that?
Yeah, it won't be Scooby-Doo like it won't be cheesy. We're definitely not going to make it cheesy, but something that is, to me, so crucial to the character is the fact that he doesn't have powers, right? Or he doesn't have the crutch of technology. You know, there's like even more modern adaptations in the comics or in the cartoons you'll see of Chameleon, like he has this like this digital mask that can like just project faces, or the belt, right? The belt that can like just hologram make. And I'm like, that takes away the work. Like, I want characters that have to work for who they are and have to work to make a difference in the world that they're trying to affect. So much of what is like beautiful about Dimitri is the fact that he's an artist. Like he is so good at what he does. That's a superpower, is being so technically great at sculpting and his artistry and painting and special effects, that he can literally convince a human being that what they're seeing is not prosthetic silicone, that it is in fact a living, breathing human being. And being an actor myself, and being a trained actor who went through college and studied all of this, when I was thinking of Chameleon as the villain, I saw him as this beautifully tragic actor. He's like the world's best method actor. And I'm like, how amazing would it be to explore the psyche of someone like that? You know, someone that is so enamored with identity and with self-expression, but is so lost as to what their own version of that is, right? He's lost himself in all of these characters, all of these personas, that he doesn't even know who he is anymore. So it's such a beautiful story that he actually has, and mirrors Peter Parker's story in season 1 perfectly.
That's great. So Spider-Man Alone, the name, is that just for season 1, or is it sticking forward for next seasons?
Yeah, great question. So nobody's asked that yet, and I don't think it's not clear yet, because there's a lot that I will not actually say in this podcast that will be coming out later once we're ready to launch our Indiegogo or our crowdfunding campaign, whichever platform we choose. There will be so much more information as to why we're doing this project and how we're choosing to go about it that plays into this bigger picture that we have. But that being said, I can share why it's Spider-Man Alone and if that's seasonal or not. And the answer is yes, it is seasonal. It is for the first season in particular. So the show, technically, if you're thinking about it, really is Spider-Man, right? And every season, if there are others, I don't know, we're on season 1 right now, so it doesn't matter. But every season, hypothetically, would have a new kind of tagline. And the tagline of season 1, this origin story, this first encounter with grief and loneliness, and ultimately answering the question, what does it mean to be a hero? You know, how does one become a hero? Is Alone, Spider-Man Alone.
Now, it's going forward with the Alone part. Are we going to see any side characters, or is this really just Peter alone?
Side characters as in what?
His friends, maybe Harry, MJ, Gwen, one of those side characters.
One of those side characters. Yeah, we'll definitely see some side characters.
All right.
We're going to see a good amount of side characters, and not all of them. There is this, not all of them. Season 1 I'll say for sure, season 1 will feature Peter Parker as our protagonist. But I also say that sparingly, because the whole plan for a season, episodic series, was this idea that we could really share that that platform and the power like a protagonist of a movie has, and really delineate that between all of the characters. Like, all of the supporting characters in our show are all the main characters. Like, Peter's not the only main character. And a lot of it is from his perspective, but not all of it is. And that was something that was so attractive to me about doing a TV show, is that we could really learn like who Gwen Stacy is, and who Harry Osborn is, and who Aunt May is in this time in her life as well. That it's not all about Peter. You know, there's a central theme, and all of these characters have a perspective on that theme, and we get to find a piece of ourselves in all of them. So Peter Parker, Aunt May, Uncle Ben will be in the show until he is no longer in the show.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Whenever that happens,
are we gonna see the demise of Uncle Ben?
Will we see the demise of Uncle Ben? Before I answer that, Harry Osborn will definitely be in it. Norman Osborn will be a supporting character, but he's not the antagonist. Chameleon is the antagonist. Gwen Stacy will be in the show, and she will be a fully fleshed character, not just a love interest, whatever that means. Captain Stacy, who in our show is not a captain yet. He's Detective Stacy, J. Jonah, Robbie Robertson, and the like. So there's a great Marvel universe that we are filling out, and they all get the chance to shine their light. Now, in terms of the Uncle Ben question, I'll just say that episode 1 is titled Origins.
Awesome. So I don't know if you can answer this question quite yet, but do you have a range of how many episodes season 1's going to be?
I do. Right now, at least in my planning, I've planned out the whole season. I'm writing each episode right now. It's looking to be like 7 episodes. 7 episodes is looking to be the perfect amount, with episode 1 being like a long episode, a movie, and episode 7 probably being another long episode, a movie. The duration I'm looking to have each episode ranges from 35 to 45 minutes. So ideally, the structure of the show would be like a Netflix series. It would be something that you could binge, but is long enough to binge, but is short enough to not be a movie. So like Stranger Things is kind of like in that 45 to an hour range, and the earlier seasons are a little bit shorter. So something like that.
So going on Peter Parker in this show, what's the mindset you put yourself in to play this role as Peter Parker?
Yeah,
because your Peter Parker seems a little darker, like you said, a little bit more like a loner. You know, what's kind of the mindset you had to get into, you know, trying to play this Peter Parker?
It's interesting. So I can't talk about the kind of backstory for this project just yet, but I will say that in a way, Peter Parker was a past life of mine. And I think everyone can say that in their own way. But for me, it's a very, very intrinsic and very personal connection I have with this character at the point in my life in which I experienced this all. That being said, what I got from the character was the whole allure of season 1 and the whole alone and loneliness thing is this idea of like, we've always seen Peter Parker's grief kind of contained within 10 minutes of a movie, right? This montage of like, oh, Uncle Ben's gone, I'm sad. And then I'm Spider-Man. And you even kind of see that in the comics, right? The end of the last few panels of Amazing Fantasy 15, where, a lonely silent figure, wanders into the night with the knowledge that with great power comes great responsibility. And it's like summed up like that. Obviously, you can see a lot of his actions after that do still, like, they're all coming from this place of like, he's trying to grasp at healing and he hasn't done it yet. But the way even the comics and even the movies just kind of have to, like, they have to sum it up quickly, right? Because they have a whole other aspect of the movie to get to. They want to get to the fun stuff. They like glaze over so much of the grieving process. And so like the term character study gets thrown around a lot, but like that's something I was so interested in, is like grief. Like, what does it mean to truly, truly lose someone? And for Peter Parker, the most like incredible part to me about it was the fact that like he's never lost anyone yet. He hasn't had the privilege to lose someone yet. He's ahead of his years in a lot of ways intellectually, but he's also so behind compared to his peers at school, right? All his peers' parents are like 20s, 30s, they're young, and then he's being raised by these elderly people who are from a whole nother time, a whole nother generation with different beliefs, traditions, morals, ethics, values. And he hasn't had the privilege of having enough friends or family to actually lose someone, to understand what death is. So when that happens for the first time, when that happens to anyone, that's like catastrophic. It's like life-changing. It's almost world-ending. When that happens for Peter Parker, it's got to be all that and more, because he's never experienced that yet. So to me, it was just the psychology of Peter Parker being as gifted as he is, but also being so inexperienced as he is. How on earth could that kid make sense of something that doesn't make sense? And that's a lot what we're exploring. Like, I think that's probably the most interesting aspect to me, is like something that I felt in my life, was loneliness. I felt extreme loneliness many, many a times. And I've tried to find power in that loneliness at one point. I'm better off alone. I'm better off in solitude. And I'll just figure all my stuff out. And I don't really need people. And that didn't really lead me anywhere. Like, it taught me a lot about myself, but then I was illiterate when it came to relationships with other people. And I had to relearn that. So a lot of that also comes from like a parallel in my own life that I can see in that character. And I'm interested in exploring, because ultimately what I want from this project is for it to be a blueprint for healing, for anybody, any fan that can come and watch this project. They can say, oh, wow, Peter Parker lost so much. He grieves just like the rest of us, even harsher at times. That's the kind of grittiness that we're, the tone of the show feels a little bit more grounded and a little bit more gritty, because we're not trying to run away from these emotions. And we're not trying to run away from this process of grief that, if you know anything about grief or have experienced it, it is unlike any other emotion, unlike any other state of being, in the sense that it takes months to years to fully rationalize. Like, it is a psychological event that you're completely unequipped for. And I know myself, and I know friends of mine, and even people that I'm just meeting, like, that are in the process of grief. It'll hit you at the most random times. You're having the best day ever, and all of a sudden you're cascading into tears, and you don't know why. And it's again that aspect of Peter Parker, the scientific intellectual who has to make sense of everything. Everything points to a conclusion, to some answer, and then to something like this that seemingly has no answer. How can one make sense of this? How can this be fair? That's what we're exploring.
I really like that you're exploring more of a grief, because like you said, it's kind of just brushed off in other media. It's like, oh, Uncle Ben's dead. Yeah. Next day, he's like over here making jokes and trying to.
Yeah, he's good.
And so it's like it's something that I'm personally exploring throughout my series as well, is grief. But with my message, it's how different people handle their grief.
Yeah.
So with mine, it's dynamics of you're gonna see more of a dynamic between Peter, Harry, and Norman, and how they're managing their grief compared to how Peter's managing his grief. Yeah. And so I really like that you're using a real life, more of a realistic approach on grief, because, like you said before, it's very like brushed off in any media, and it's not explored that much. It's like you get top 5 minutes of him actually like dealing with it, and then he's done.
Yeah.
And something that I liked from probably one of the worst Spider-Man movies, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, was that PTSD of him grieving for Captain Stacy.
Yeah.
And I thought if they would have just done that for that second movie, explore more of his grieving side, I thought that would have been amazing. So I'm really like intrigued that you're gonna explore this more in depth than like other media have done.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you basing this off any comics, or is this solely just you're taking source material that you know from Spider-Man and just creating your own storyline? Especially with Chameleon, are you taking your own little twist on Chameleon, or is this based off certain medias that you liked from other comics or TV shows?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. It is very much rooted in the comics and in the lore. Like, Steve Ditko, I'll keep going back to that because season 1 is so much of Steve Ditko's era of Spider-Man. Like, to me, that's such an angsty and angry at the world Peter Parker that we don't actually really see now, right?
Yeah.
Tom Holland's movies are great in their own way, but at least when you look at that version of Peter Parker in the first few movies, he seems so innocent and so puppy dog. And then when you go back and you look at the first Steve Ditko comics, Peter's not like that. You know what I mean? He definitely tries to connect with people, but he's so quickly brushed aside by them, and he doesn't take it lightly. Like, he's like, to hell with them. You know what I mean? He's like, screw it. Like, whatever. The world can burn. They're not nice to me. It doesn't matter. Like, he's a jerk.
Yeah, I've seen like the people online be like, Peter Parker would never do this, and I'm like, Peter Parker's kind of a dick if you really read the comic books.
Yeah, he is. He's not Clark Kent. You know what I mean? He's not this character that we're supposed to aspire to be like. Peter Parker is us. So he's just as hypocritical, just as angsty, just as much of a jerk as any one of us can be at any moment. And that's what's so attractive about it, because it's like, how does this very, very flawed person like ourselves become a hero? Find the strength, the morality to do the right thing. And so much of that characterization of Peter, especially early on in the comics, is so influential to our take on Peter now, because in order to become this, right, Spider-Man, he has to start here. And we see that arc in the comics and then Steve Ditko iteration of Peter Parker. And that's so we want to justify everything that we're doing. So to me, that's the greater arc. The character could either start here and end here, or he could start all the way down here and end here. And what is going to be the better story? In that regard is the better story. So everything comes back to justification, and we constantly look to the source material to justify and to answer questions that we have and to pull from. That being said, we're not making a comic book. It's like we can't take the story and just give you what because then you could read the comic book. Yeah. So any adaptation is trying its best at all times to be as faithful to the source material as possible, while also bringing that new element. The Spider-Verse movies do that great. It's so true to the character, and yet there's still so much new that's added. So it's just about, how can we take, especially when it comes to Spider-Man and the origin and this whole thing, how can we take something that's so familiar to the audiences and make it feel new again? And so, yeah, there's definitely comics. I could rattle off a bunch of comics that you'll see, even stills from our series, like almost pulled from panels. But what's different about that is that our series brings context, new context, and story to those things. And I feel like we're able to flesh out much more of all of the characters and bring new things to the characters. There's a reason why Chameleon's not, one of the greatest villains of all time. So it's about, okay, well, what works for that character? What's like really, really interesting and really, give Spider-Man a fight for his money, and what's just interesting about that character in his own sake. And then what can we add to him to make him a better villain, to make him a better person, right? Not in the sense of morality, but in the sense of like interest. Why would the audience care about him? And again, if you know anything about Dimitri, you recognize that he's a victim. He's not quite a villain. He's a victim in his own right. And that's what the audiences are going to see very clearly in season 1, is that, Peter Parker and Chameleon are mirrors of each other. And it kind of serves as like a warning and a lesson, something that there's something that they can learn from each other. And it's not just, world-ending evil destruction,
So I know you're using a lot of Steve Ditko. Have you been reading a lot of Steve Ditko for the series, or are you just kind of researching stories primarily from Steve Ditko and getting those stories and reading them, or are you just reading Steve Ditko from start to finish?
Yeah, I'm reading all comics. I'm reading a lot of different comics. That being said, the first Spider-Man comics I was introduced to were Steve Ditko comics, were the first ones. I had like the first set of them. Right now I have like the whole Amazing Spider-Man kind of like almanac. It's like this big, and it's all the stories from Ditko through Ramita Senior, and I think it stops there.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also reading newer ones. You know, there are newer, especially when it comes to Chameleon. There's like a couple fairly recent comics in like the past 10 years or so that do really interesting things with Chameleon that aren't there in the Steve Ditko comics. So the Steve Ditko comics are by no means gospel, but they do have a really great foundation being the first. You know, there's a reason why this character worked. You
Yeah.
know, you have to go look at Amazing Fantasy 15 and look at that and look at the time period it came out in and say, why did this work at this time for the culture, for the people in this era? Why did this story work? And there's a reason why it worked. It's because not only is it his origin, but what's interesting about his origin story is that he's not a hero. He's really not the hero of his own story. He has a villain's arc ultimately because he fails. He fails at being a hero. And that's what's so alluring to us about Spider-Man. And it's like, how can he redeem himself from that? And then that's taken us through 60 plus years of this one moment defining this character where he's on this constant quest for redemption, something that ultimately he can't forgive himself for, but he does everything in his power to rectify that type of thing. So I'm looking at many different comics. But again, just even the style, even the way Steve drew Spider-Man, you know, they were squinty eyes. That's why we're embracing that. You know, there was something angry about his Spider-Man. There was something like brash about his Spider-Man, and we're trying to embrace that, because to me that and the whole grieving process go hand in hand, and we get to see how they work off of each other.
Yeah, I have one of those volumes from Steve Ditko in my closet. I have like a whole bucket of comic books, and mine is, I think it's volume 4, where it has the Chameleon storyline where he tries to bring in Peter's fake parents, and I was reading it, I was like, damn, he really made Peter think, like,
bruh, that one's brutal.
I was like, he really made him think here, actually.
Some of the deepest insecurities of that character. So
yeah,
that's a crazy move by him.
Yeah, and I was reading it, I was like, this is such a good story, because it not only showed Peter's faults, but like it showed how much he missed his parents and how he trusted the fake parents. But yeah, I have that one of those volumes in there, along with every Spider-Man comic book media I can get my hands on. But yeah, so going back to Spider-Man alone, is there plans for future seasons? And if so, have you kind of thought of where you would want the direction to go with the character and the seasons as well?
The present of this project right now is season 1, and the future of whatever it could be is ultimately completely in the audience's hands. It's all in the fans' hands, you know. If we do a good enough job with season 1 and tell captivating and ultimately like closed story, like, you know, I don't want season 1 to just be some prelude to season 2. It's its own story. It's its own, you know, contained like magnifying glass, its own look into Peter's life, you know.
It's its own standalone thing.
Yeah, it's its own standalone thing, but I would be wrong in saying that I didn't plan a future for the character and how he would develop. So we're ready for anything. I'll say that we're ready for anything and ways that this project could go beyond a season 1. But I'm so focused in making season 1 everything it needs to be that anytime I would focus on anything but that, I feel like I'm doing a disservice, because in order to get anywhere past this has to be everything it needs to be and more. And again, it's all in the fans' hands. You know, if this is something that the fan, you know, because we're at the mercy of crowdfunding and having it be a nonprofit. You know, there's a lot of community and teamwork that's going to be involved in this. That isn't just something the production can whip together. You know, we're all just a bunch of people, young people trying to learn how to do this thing better, putting ourselves out there and working to make something of quality. But we by no means have all the money in the world. We're not producers yet. We're not investors. We don't have, millions in stocks. So how any of this can really happen is telling a story that's going to be pertinent to people's experiences today and allowing them to gain something from their investment in our project. And again, for me, all this comes from just like a very deep intrinsic passion and connection to the characters. It's something like I have to do this project. It's the only reason why I'm doing it. Like, as a fan, of course, I'd want to see this, but like, I have to do this project as my first thing because, my career, I'm an actor. I'm an actual actor with an agency in Atlanta pursuing film and TV and still theater work professionally. So this is by no means something that makes any sense in what I'm actually trying to do. And yet it makes perfect sense to me and to my story and the effect I'm trying to have on people in the world. So there's so much that we can do with the future of this character that is available, and all of that will be decided when we can really win over our audience with season 1.
Yeah, I can really relate to you on the fact that you look at this project and you're like, this is something I have to do, because I feel like for when you're doing a project like this and you have so much emotion in it, I feel like it's so personal to you that it's like that one project you're like, I'm either gonna do a great job at it or I shouldn't do it at all. And it's something that I was like that I was also kind of in the plan of doing, because I wanted to do a short first. I went out to a friend, I was like, we should do a fun little short, just doing that. And then I had another reason why I'm exploring grief also with my thing is I had a friend pass away that year. And so it really brought into effect like I want to explore this, because of what I was going through at the time. The only real escape I had was writing. So I just started planning out. I was like, okay, I want to explore this, what you're going through and stuff like that. So to me, it's like you said, it's something that you have to do, and it's either you're gonna put all your attention on it or you maybe shouldn't do it yet. And I, and I know I see that you're very dedicated to this, and it's a very good, because I'm really excited to see it, to be honest. As soon as I saw the costume and then I saw the little teaser you put out, I was like, I want to see this so bad. I was like, I can't wait to see this. And I have a lot of other friends that like I've showed. I was like, you should see this, you should see this, and then they're like, oh, this is really good. And then I was like, yeah. I'm like, and then they're like, where is it out? I was like, it's not out yet, but it's coming. I'm like, it's coming, and it's like I said, I'm very excited to see your iteration of Peter Parker and what you do with the story, because you obviously have put so much time and effort into it, and it shows. Because I've seen projects made and I've seen very little effort put into it.
Yeah, 100%.
With this, with your project, Spider-Man Alone, I see so much effort and heart and, just dedication put into this one project alone. And it's, it not only makes me as a fan really excited, but, as a Spider-Man, as a Spider-Man fan as well, who's very connected to the character, it makes me very happy as well.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of media does what you're doing.
Bro.
And so I'm very, very excited to see how this season plays out, and I'm very just in general excited for the project. So I just want to say that you've done such a great job in pulling people in, because I myself am a really big fan of this project. So you really did a good job in pulling people in and getting the interest in people. So I definitely think this is going to be a big success, and I'm really excited to see what you do with it. But yeah, so you said possible plans for future seasons, and that's really exciting. You said you're an actor and you're looking into, your, professional level. Is there a certain project you would love to do as a professional actor that is in your like hindsight that's one of your goals to do?
Yeah, so a lot of the goals with the way in which I want to steer my career, I just want to do good work. Number one, I want to do good work. You know, when I was younger, for sure, like most people, you kind of wonder, like, wow, what, especially with acting and being in America and just the way all of this is set up, is it's so easy to see the celebrity side of what acting can bring. You can also kind of look at like any occupation, and like anyone who's really really good at that occupation, you know, can achieve notoriety for it. But there's this false allure of fame and fortune and being this celebrity that I definitely had when I was younger. You know, I was like, yeah, I want to be known. And as I trained as an actor in college, and you know, matured what it is that I was supposed to do, learned about the history of acting, and learned about, you know, anyone that pursues theater or acting, they're crazy. They're 100% crazy. Like, no one is actually doing it for fame or to be a celebrity, because the people that are crazy enough to actually pursue it seriously, they know the magic of it. They know what it's like to be in that inner creative space when they're just completely dropped in, and any sense of self that they had in the ego are completely stripped away, and they are utterly transformed as another person. And what the power of that is, and why that is so impactful in the world. Um, it's incredible, because it literally can prove that no matter how different any one person is, how diverse all of humanity is that we share the same essence. We share this one human experience, regardless of how it looks on the outside. Everyone can understand the human experience because we're all human. And so in that regard, like, that unifies us. And then to see a person, a being in play who can play as other things, goes to show that we're not as different as we make each other out to be. You know, that we're not as separated as we want to be, or that, you know, people on TV tell us we are. And in fact, we're far more unified than we give ourselves credit for. And I think that there's such an innate value in that. And when I finally discovered that, and the power of that, and the way that I can unify communities and use a platform that the platform comes from just doing something well, when I cannot be self-indulgent in that, but be self-sacrificing even to a T, right? This all Spider-Man heroic things, right? Things that the character of Spider-Man, things that heroes throughout history, these archetypal heroes even have taught us, right? There's actually more power in being of service to others than service to self. And yet it's in our very nature as human beings to want to preserve self, to want to serve self, to want to get all the things I deserve and all the things that, I've worked for. But what I've experienced in my own life and what I've been able to achieve in my own life has shown me the opposite of that is true as well. And that I actually feel more human when I can help other people. And that's something that I've always wanted to do since I was young. Since I was young, I always wanted to be Spider-Man, because I always wanted to help people. And I just thought that had to look like me shooting webs from my wrists and climbing up walls. And now I realize that anytime I can apply my own consciousness, my own heart, my own knowledge, my own wisdom into an endeavor and do that for the betterment of others, I'm serving the greater good, you know? And I don't know. I guess where I was going with that is just that's the way I intend to approach my acting now. So any project that uplifts that and actually can help people, and can challenge me as well, right? Because I'm not perfect. I'm completely flawed, absolutely 100% flawed, hypocritical, imperfect as it can get, and yet I'm so interested in exploring those aspects of my own character and the universal character of humanity in order to become a better person. So doing things that are far outside of who Benett is are the things that are going to get me the best results, and are the things that are going to teach me the most about myself and other people. So, yeah.
Do you have you're writing. Are you planning on taking also a writing path apart from an acting path, or is
Oh,
it just
yeah. I mean, that's so interesting. I I always could write. Not talking about screenwriting,
yeah?
but I always was great at writing. Like I was in the higher English classes. I loved English. My mom's a writer, so I get a lot of that from her. I write poetry. Just like a lot of the way I think is in poetry, like in prose. Um, I guess just a lot of the way I approach the world is through like weaving together language. So I always had an affinity for writing and for poetry and for literature, and yet I wasn't like educated um, in how to do that properly. And especially when it comes to screenwriting. In my program, in my BFA acting program in college, I believe there were screenwriting classes and stuff I could have taken, and yet I didn't. Because I took film classes because I was interested in film acting and things, but I didn't do that. So a lot in what we learned, luckily, about the history of drama and dramatic literature and things introduced me to Aristotle and his 7 points of storytelling, being plot, character, theme, all the way down to 7 spectacle, and being able to even revisit that in this process and read books like Save the Cat. If anybody is interested in getting into screenwriting, read Save the Cat. That's been my complete blueprint for how to write and approach season 1. Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. That's been my entire blueprint for how to do a TV show. I think I kind of understand how a 3-act story of a movie would work, but then when you translate that into episodic television, it's different. It's like a little bit different. It doesn't apply exactly the same. Episodes have to have a cold open, and they have to leave you with a little cliffhanger that's leading us into the next episode, and they have to do so many things, and then you're juggling so many characters and so many stories. It was foreign to my technical understanding of how this all would work. So I had to educate myself in order to do this project correctly in a way that would be fulfilling and ultimately be the project that I want it to be. I had to challenge myself. I had to research. I had to go to school on my own, right? In my own little studio here. I had to put myself in class every day and learn how to do this thing properly. Because again, I'm an actor. I'm a filmmaker. I do know how to use a camera. So like things like that I've done my whole life. I know I've been making movies and short films and editing and directing my whole life. But I haven't been writing screenplays my whole life. And if I have, which I've written screenplays, but the screenplays that I've written have been short films, 5-page, 10-page, 15-page, condensed things, not a full length feature film, not a 7-episode, almost hour-long season, So I definitely am enjoying the process. It's been incredibly difficult. But I recognize the areas in which I'm struggling the most are the areas in which I'm the most unclear on what I need to do. So in those moments, like it's all about specificity. It's like, how can I get really specific on what needs to happen in this moment, but how that's affecting the greater whole. And if it really doesn't have any basis in the central theme or in the story as a whole, it's like it's just there for nothing. Just like take it out. Don't let it distract you. And I'm like looking at my monitor here because I have the script for episode 1 pulled up, and like I'm so excited with how this is going. And like this is a draft of it. This won't be the final version, and yet I feel so proud of like where even it's starting. I'm like, I know that this thing is in a good place, and when it's completely deconstructed and revised to the gods, that it will be exactly what I set it out to be, and ultimately having help, because I'm not at any means an official screenwriter yet. This is as much of a classroom for me as it is like anything. So the nice thing about being in the industry and being in the career that I'm in and having friends and meeting people and networking is that you get to meet a lot of awesome people. And so I'm lucky to say that, I've educated myself as much as I can, and I'm experimenting as much as I can with this script and writing it, that I'm lucky that not only am I doing that, but I also have people in my circle who are going to be able to look at this and who are going to be able to help develop it into something that is professional, that could actually stand on its own.
Are you writing this by yourself, or do you have someone kind of helping you write as well?
So I'm technically writing it myself. But the whole this project again has been, when Kevin says things like, I can see how much work you're putting into it, and people can see that. I'm so thankful, and I'm also so amazed, because I feel like we've put out just like the tip of the iceberg, and I think that's something that is just like a part of who I am. I'm very meticulous. Like, I want every detail to mean something, and for nothing to kind of go to waste. And so I feel like some of that is being translated in what we're putting out, and people are picking up on that. And that's why this project is worthy already, without a lot being out about it at all. Like, there's maybe 95% more of this project that is purposely being withheld from the public until we're ready to launch that Indiegogo campaign. And I'm so excited for everyone to actually know what we've been withholding, and for that to be a driving force and motivation for investing into this project, and for people to get more clarity on what this story of season 1 and what we're even trying to do really is. But the fact that that's coming across is so amazing, because this has been years in the making. Like, we're at least over 2 years into this project, and I'm saying I'm over 2 years in this project, and now writing the script for episode 1. I have the whole season mapped out now, finally, blueprint. I know all the beats of it, so now I'm literally just going in and I'm writing out the scenes. But it took that long to actually fully get a grasp on all the characters, on our approach to all of them, crack the story, and make something that is worthy of people's viewership. And I mean, it just goes back to that thing. Like, I keep telling people that are like, I'm so ready for it. When is it coming out? When is it coming out? Like, good things take time. So I want, like, every day, I've thought about this project every single day for over 2 years. This has been the number one thing on my mind for over 2 years. It is my main focus every waking moment. And I've put in that same amount of effort and time and sweat and tears and blood into this project to make it what it needs to be for the fans. So to be at the stage that we're in now, where I feel like we are in like the last portion of it, right? The last bit of pre-production before we can move into production, is so incredible to me. I'm like, wow, like I can see the finish line, like for pre-production, I can see the finish line. Like, we're so close. And yet I'm also, and every day I'm like, wow, I can't wait until this project comes out too. Like, I can't wait to be in a theater with people at a premiere, or be on YouTube and be able to watch the whole season and it's finally done, and just reflect on everything we've come from. And so much of that projecting myself into the future, I've also made sure that I'm cautious of not forgetting about my present, because the work that I'm putting in now will get me to where I need to go. So it's critical, it's valuable, but all in all, yeah. So my girlfriend, to answer that question very quickly, my girlfriend has been like instrumental, and number one, like lighting a fire under my ass to get me to make this project, because I was going to make this project in high school. So this is back in 2015, 2016, when I was not who I am now. I was going to make this project. It's not exactly what we're going to get now, because I'm actually able to do what I want to do and make something worthy now. I couldn't have done it then, but it would have been cute. But I was like, I had every intention out. I mean, we had a script, we had a cast, we had a crew, we had locations in high school. Like, we were ready to make a little fan series for YouTube, and it didn't pan out. Last minute thing, it just didn't work. We just never started filming, but we were ready to. And so, I go through high school, I finish high school, I go through college, I finish college, I moved to Atlanta with my girlfriend, and we're here. We're independent adults, and we're trying to find our place in the industry. And, as people who are paying rent and doing all these things. And we just got to the moment. This is something I found in college, like in my own exploration of my artistry. I realized that every person needs to make their Who Am I project. Everybody, their first thing that they do. They could do work before, whatever, but when they're ready to be like a professional in their industry, like when they're ready to do this for real, the first project they need to make, whether that's a painting, a TV show, a movie, a short film, whatever, they need to make that project their Who Am I project. It can be as literal as literally just being about them, their life story, whatever it is, the things that got them to where they are now. They need to make some kind of project that is their Who Am I project, that says, this is me. This is me as Benett Sullivan. This is who I am. And I know you have to know who you are to make the Who Am I project, which takes time, but this is who I am. And then you have to give that to the world. So number one, you can just finally like move beyond all of that pain, that beautifulness, that trauma, like just finally be able to heal from that, put that aside, have that into a project that you can move on from, so that you can be open to doing things that are outside of yourself finally. But it also is perfect because it's like a token that any casting director, producer, filmmaker, audience member, anybody can watch that project and say, wow, I know who they are. Like I know who they are as a person and an artist, and I want to work with them. Because so much of the time, that you have to find that out after the fact. You have to find that out behind the scenes, or maybe never find that out. You just don't drive with the person. You never get to know who they are. So I'm saying, screw that. Like put all of yourself into a project and let that be your introduction to the world, and then move from that place. And that's exactly what this project is. I was calling my girlfriend on that calling of making your Who Am I project for a documentary she wanted to make about her family called Rova. And I was like, we're going to do it. And we have a camera. I'm going to film it. You direct it. Let's go to Virginia. Let's drive down to Virginia. And we're going to make this documentary all about your family and their faith. And we did it. And now we're editing it. And that's her Who Am I project. Her whole thing is, in order to understand who I am now, I have to go back to my roots. And they're so uncomfortable, and they've hurt me so many ways. And yet I haven't healed from that. And this is an opportunity for me to do that. And then she called me out on this, and I was just sitting on the couch in the living room, and she goes, I think we were just talking about, things we've always wanted to do. And I was like, I had this Spider-Man project when I was in high school, and I'm such a big Spider-Man fan. Like she knows that. And I was like, I would have loved to have done that. I would still love to do that. Like that would mean the world to me. And I feel like I actually have something to say now if I were to do that. She goes, great. So we're doing it. And that night, over 2 years ago, we started this project, and every day we've been working on this. So in the conception and in the brainstorming and in the mapping out of the story of season 1, she has been there with me every step of the way, and she gets all the credit. And now we're at this point where we're just translating all the ideas to dialogue. And for that, I'm taking the lead in that, and I'm writing. And then, like I said, after this is done, I'm going to give it to people that are a little bit more qualified, and they're going to be able to perfect it. add their, you need to work with people who are better than you.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to get a better mastery at what it is that I'm doing. And a lot of that is making sure that you're not the best person in the room, that you're the worst person in the room, so that you can learn from the people who are better than you. And, I'm lucky I'm in Atlanta. There's a ton of industry professionals all around me. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to learn from you. So here's what I can offer. Help me make it better. And I'm only going to grow.
Yeah. I when I first started writing my project, I look back on it now, and I think I still have the first draft somewhere in my files. And I read it, and I'm like, oh, this this was not something that made sense. And
No, not
so
at
what I
all.
started doing was I started obviously talking more to people in my career path, because I'm doing film and TV as well. So I met someone named Matt along the way, and he hit me up on Instagram when I first announced that I wanted to do a short, when it was
Yeah,
going to be a short still.
yeah.
And we talked, and he told me, he's like, "Hey, I'm a writer. He's older than me. He's already on his way out. He's doing his own thing."
Yeah.
And so I've been using like I've been trying to get his advice on stuff, and he introduced me to Save the Cat. He gave me that book actually for the Save the Cat.
So
The
good.
and I've been he's my main person I go to, where I'm like, I need help on writing. I go to him. I'm like, "Hey Matt, so I have this idea, I just can't figure out how to do it,
Yeah.
but I have it in mind." And he guides me along, and I think that's very important, to have someone that's, like you said, someone that's better than you, that could guide you as well, when you're not sure what you want to do, or when you're not sure what you're doing. Because that was something with me. I didn't know what I was doing. I was writing a script, and it was going to be a short, and then I was like, okay, didn't know what I was doing. And then obviously stuff happened, and then it actually gave me the purpose on what I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing this, and I have the opportunity to get this and turn it into something personal, and something that I could use, that would be not only beneficial to me, but could be beneficial to others.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I looked onto him, and he's helped me a lot. He told me everything about story structure. He called me out on everything that I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you're like writing something for the first time, and then you obviously revise it, and then you look back on it, it's like, why did I even think of that?
Mhm.
And I've tried to surround myself with people that not only are can help me, but also can push me to the limits that I can do.
Yeah.
And one of the people who has helped me in acting is the actor that plays Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
His name is Alan Wayne Anderson.
That's awesome. Shout
He's
out.
he's a veteran actor already. He's told me he's been doing it for over 14 years. And every time we're on set, and I'm like, "Hey, so I asked for his advice. So I'm doing this, is there a way I could do it differently? Or maybe, I'm just not doing it right." And, he's giving me a lot of good advice on how to do stuff. And I think that's something that I feel like I'm very honored to have, especially since, I'm barely starting off. I'm in no way, shape, or form, you know what I'm doing still. I'm still learning. I'm still doing everything that I
Mhm.
need to do to learn, still building on my portfolio. And so, I feel like I got very privileged in the fact that I was able to get these people to guide me, in a sense, when I needed help.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like same with you, with my girlfriend, she's pushing me to do. She's pushing me to do it. She's like, well, because I at some point I was ready just to not do it,
Yeah.
and she was like, "You have to do it," and she pushed me to it. She told me, like, basically what she's saying is, you're being stupid. Um, and so, she pushed me to do it, and now we're in a halt in production, just due to some funding stuff that happened. But we're ready to get back in this later this month. Actually, we're filming Uncle Ben and Aunt May stuff
Awesome.
later on this month, so that's gonna be really fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's gonna be really, really fun. And it's funny because the person that plays Aunt May is one of my old high school teachers.
There it is.
Um,
Boom.
and
That's that. That's that connection, networking. Like you got to pull from. You got to pull from people around you. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
so it's so cool that she's willing to help you out with that.
and she's always helped me. She wrote me a great letter of recommendation for college, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Yeah.
I remember reading it, and I was like, she's really going to be that person that helped me.
Bro, that's the person you want in that role anyways, right? Because you and her already have that like relationship. Like, you know what I mean? You're fond of each other.
Yeah.
She looks out for you. You kind of look out for her. Like you already have that chemistry, that bond. So that's gonna translate to Peter and Melee so well. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I remember when I was first looking for actresses for that, I was like, oh, I can't. None of these people work. And then it was like one of those things where it hit me in the head. I was like, I have the perfect person right in front of me.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's gonna be very fun to do that. I haven't really. I guess people are gonna hear it now that I'm filming that, but
Surprise! Hey,
I wasn't really
breaking
gonna
news.
announce. I wasn't gonna announce anything. I was just gonna film, get some stills ready for like later on and stuff like that. But now that I'm talking about it, it's out.
Bro, now in the title you have to say with special announcement.
With special announcement.
Let that be your clickbait, like thumbnail and title, and get people.
Everyone's gonna think like Bennett's gonna be in Spider-Verse, and
Let's make a thumbnail.
Benett Spider-Verse. But yeah, I guess that's out of the bag now. I'm doing that later on this month, and that's gonna be very fun. I've been having such a blast doing something, just filming in general, because I had a time period where I wasn't filming anything at all, and I was dreading so bad. I was like, I want to film something. I don't care what it is or what the project is. I just want to film something.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm doing that later that month, and I'm really excited to do it. But yeah, moving on a little more to the fun side of things. I've asked this to a model. I asked this to anyone that I talk to that is Spider-Man, a Spider-Man fan. Who is your favorite Spider-Man between movies? I don't want to say TV shows or cartoons yet, because there's obviously a lot of people that can beat that.
For sure.
Who is your favorite live action Spider-Man? Or I guess Across the Spider-Verse works too. They're film, and I do see those movies as main Spider-Man movies. But yeah, who's your favorite and why?
Okay, yeah. I mean, Across the Spider-Verse is now really up there because those are some of the best movies. But that being said, live action wise, are you asking me who is my favorite like person to play that, or what are my favorite, like who's in my favorite movie?
I guess who's your favorite person to have gotten, laced up the boots as a Spider-Man?
Okay. I guess I still have to go with Toby. I grew up on Toby, so maybe there's some bias there, but when you look at his first, but more specifically his second movie, it still holds. It is an incredible achievement by Sam Raimi and the whole team. I think Toby also does a good job in that. It's interesting, that it is, none of them are technically like comic Peter. Like I feel like we haven't got that yet, but they're all their own adaptation of the character. And so for that, I feel like Toby, but probably acting wise, like Andrew would be my favorite. His movies aren't my favorite, but his performance and his take on the character, I feel like is really grounded and relatable. And I guess I can see a lot of parallels between that characterization and even what we're doing in Spider-Man alone. And I think he's a phenomenal actor. So yeah, I'll go Toby. Yeah.
My opinion has changed throughout the years because I grew up on Toby as well. But then in my preteen years, I got introduced to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 1, and I really liked his performance in there. And then, going on to my late teens, college years, Tom Holland's been Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And as much as like I have a lot of stuff that I don't like about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, there's still a lot of things that I still like about Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
For sure.
But yeah, I feel like I've always kind of had like a soft spot for all three of them, no matter what. But I think Toby's always gonna be the first one to be there.
Yeah, I think so for now. But hey, we still got more to come. We've got more fan films coming out. We have coming out. We've got
Lotus is coming out soon, I think.
Soon, yeah. That's coming out. Zion's Convergence.
Convergence looks really good too.
They're still filming, but that would be coming soon.
Yeah, they've been like secretly filming, I think.
Yeah.
And I've been excited. I've been excited for that. I've been following up on that. We Are Spidey's coming out soon, part 3. I'm excited for that. And then Jake, who was in Spider-Man Fallen, is actually going back onto one of his original projects. I'm helping him out with Spider-Verse. We plan on introducing his Spider-Man because one of the things he said that he wanted to do was get more exposure and get, you know, a better understanding of what he wants to do with the character. So I was like, why don't we kind of implement that into Spider-Verse when
Yeah.
we introduce your character
That's
and
awesome.
using as a stepping stone to, you know, so you could do your own project. And so I'm excited for what he's doing. I read the script of the script he wants to go with.
Yeah,
Pretty exciting. It's different. It's very different. But it's very, very exciting.
that's
Um,
cool.
but yeah, and like I said, your Spider-Man Alone is something. It's one of the top ones I'm excited for. Um, it's just such a cool. Every time I see the suit, I'm just like, that's such a cool suit. And it's like, and it's in a sense like, damn, really, no one has ever thought about it. But it's like something you would think people would have thought about by now. But it's like no one has even done it.
Yeah,
And it's like the fact that you did it and it works so well for the tone you're going for, and it's just like every photo I've seen for it, I'm like, that's such a great suit.
thanks, man.
I'm like, that's such a great homemade suit. Like, I love it, and the fact that it's the main suit for season one. You said it was the main suit for season one.
Yeah.
Let's just
But
say
it'll be in season one for the majority. Absolutely, it is. Again, street level Spider-Man. This is his first outing. This is his first doing this at all, and that's his first suit.
yeah,
So
and the fact that it's such a, like, you actually look at it and you're like, Peter Parker made that. It's
yeah,
not like, and that, I think that was something I was having a hard time exploring around. It's like, how am I even gonna get my Peter Parker to like show up in full costume and be like, yeah, he made that. And I worked my way around it. I found a little you know, little way that it works. And I'm like happy that it's like it worked, because that was one of my biggest pet peeves with any Spider-Man film, was like, how does he even get that suit?
yeah,
It's like
100%.
he has, like, he's supposed to be a broke teenager, you know, making his own stuff, and then you see him in the next scene, he has like a multi-million-dollar suit that's super detailed, and I'm just like, how do you even
Yeah,
get
it's like
that?
perfectly screen printed. Freaking, they don't even use puff paint on those. They use like urethane webs and stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
just crazy. It's so clear that it's a movie studio, and you know, you got to give some lenience to all of this because this is fiction. Like there is the aspect of, you know, suspension of disbelief and stuff. Like there's so much that you can just buy into, but something that I feel like is setting our show apart and our take on the characters, that like a lot of the things that we take for granted as fans, I wanted to ground and I wanted to make practical, and I wanted the audience to pay attention to it a little bit more, and like give them a way to buy into the reality, you know, because there are things that, you know, spider powers and these superpowers are things that they are going to have to suspend their disbelief, and they willingly do so, you know, but there's a lot of things that I didn't want them to have to do that work for, and I wanted it to feel. My whole goal for this was like Spider-Man growing up to me felt so real, like he felt so tangible. It felt like at any moment, like I could just transform and be him. And I want to take that same kind of like hope and tangibleness and bring that into our show, like the way it's shot, the way it's written, um, the way things are, right, when it comes to his suit. Like that's something that any kid at home, they're watching, like, you know, he can't make Toby's suit at
yeah,
home. You know, you can't make Andrew's suit at home, even though it looks like you can in the first movie, because he's like, he does one line of screen print,
yeah.
and you
And
can't
everyone's
make,
like, he
you can
did
make
it.
Tom's homemade suit, and that's why you saw so many people cosplaying as Tom's homemade suit. But then he gets the Stark suit like that. You can't make that at home.
Yeah,
So
that was,
any kid who is not financially abundant to just finally see a character that they already completely relate to, and then can tangibly, practically become. And that's just how I want it to feel. So the sweat pants, sweatshirt, all that made complete sense.
yeah, and I, like I said, it's a really great design, something that hasn't been done before at all. Um, but yeah, I'm like really, really, really excited for that suit, and I'm excited to see it like actually on screen and see how it works. And that's something that's very cool. When just the suit alone gets you excited, you're like, okay, I want to see this. I want to see this, you know, I want
And
to see.
that was the scary thing too, because it's like this is not by any means like one of those like multi-million-dollar Spider-Man suits, you know what I mean? Like a lot
Yeah,
of the times people get excited over that because it's like, wow, look how well made it is, look how detailed it is, it's so perfect, it's so beautiful.
it's like the
And
comics and everything like that. Yeah,
yeah, that is like what gets people excited. Like you even look at the Lotus suit, like that thing is beautifully made, 100%, and that thing is expensive. So you have something that is like, a lot of people will buy into your project just based off your suit. And my worry is like, well, and honestly, the suit that you're gonna see in the show, we haven't even made yet. So like what you've seen are like the first drafts of that suit, but we're going to pretty much like perfect that look. It's still going to be completely homemade. We're just going to perfect every part of it, like perfect. It's going
yeah,
to be perfectly imperfect because it's a kid made it. But
yeah.
you know what I mean? We're going to like bring the best quality we can to that suit without changing its charm and what it is, but just do it better. What you see in like the Instagram and stuff, like I made that thing in another state on contract for another work. Like I was just like, that was my first time ever making something like that. And so I'm amazed that it worked as well as it did, and yet there's still so many things that are wrong with it that I'm like, I could do better. And I kind of challenged myself in that way a little bit with the tutorial when I made the suit again, and things have changed. But the final suit, actually, I have like a little picture, like a little drawing of it. It's up on the wall, the little brainstorming index card wall. But this is a more accurate like look of what the suit in the show will look like. So like what we've changed is the hand wraps don't just end at like the wrist. They travel up a little bit into the forearms. There may or may not be a little bit of like web wings that are very like ripped and torn. The shoes are kind of the same, but they might be high tops. So subtle changes. There's no webs on this suit. So there's subtle changes, but I think overall, that is more in line with the aesthetic and the proportions and everything that we kind of wanted from the suit to begin with. And it took me making the suit that we have on the Instagram and stuff to learn what it is that I actually wanted. So overall, it's still the same kind of suit, and somehow works. Like that was the thing, is like how can I rival these multi-million-dollar suits? Like I can't. And then I was like, okay, but what would Peter Parker make? He would make that. And that's how it's going to rival. You know what I mean? It's like not something anybody has to buy into. They're like, oh my God, I buy that. Oh, wow. Oh my God, I can make that. Oh my God, that looks like he could actually make, whoa. It's again, like we're leveraging reality in ours to win over our audience. So somehow that homemade suit, it's like funny too, because that homemade suit wasn't actually going to be like the main suit of season 1. Like that actually was only going to be in there for a second. And then there was going to be this like more Steve Ditko style suit that would come in that was, much better made and all this stuff. And that was going to be his homemade suit for the show. And then we, put out that like teaser announcement video and the pictures and stuff. And people were like, I love the suit. And I was like so insecure about it. I was like, really? You do? What the heck? And then I was like, well, the story I'm telling lends itself to this suit. And I was like, well, why don't I just take the look of the Steve Ditko suit that I want and just make it the homemade suit out of sweatpants? Why don't I just do what I want? But instead of doing it in the way that it's always done, what if I just made the materials the same materials as the homemade suit? And that was the sort of like middle ground that I could like meet myself in and be like, all right, fans win again.
But yeah, so like another question I wanted to ask was, have you had any plans on trying that new Spider-Verse Whopper?
Spider-Verse Whopper. I haven't, bro. I actually drove past like a Burger King today, and they always got that like smoke billowing out of their little rooftop and the smells. And I'm like, I've seen a lot of people just chowing down on that thing, and I'm like, it looks so interesting. It's like fire red bun and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know if I would love that or I would just like be cast into the bathroom for hours after I ate that.
It's like I told Amato, me and Amato talked about the Whopper too. I was like, I had it twice, and it was just a regular Whopper. That
It's just the burger, yeah.
there was nothing special to it. And then he was telling me, he's like, why are people dying online? I was like, I don't know.
What?
There's been like, he was seeing online that people were having like attacks with it. Like, he's like, what is all this crazy stuff happening with the burger? I was like, I think it's just for the memes at this point.
I hope so. It's that red 40 getting to people.
Yeah. But yeah, I've had it twice and it's been fine.
Yeah.
The second time was because my mom wanted to surprise me with it. And she's like, look what I got you. And I was like, oh, thank you. She even got me the Spider-Verse crown and stuff. She just showed up to work with lunch and was like, here you go. And I was like, oh my God, thank you.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like I said before, I'm very excited to see what you're gonna do with the series, and I think it's something different. Like I mentioned before, it's something different, something cool, something fresh. It feels really fresh.
Thank you.
And so yeah, I'm just very excited for it, and I definitely will be donating to this project.
Thank you.
You know, as much as I can contribute.
Anything counts, bro.
And,
anything. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I've been kind of like juggling. I know I've been really hard to like respond back to very quickly, but I've been trying to juggle with dealing with all the Spider-Verse stuff that's going on behind the scenes, with also Spectacular, which is like the main goal that I have right now is Spectacular. Right. You know, I'm still focusing on Spider-Verse, but my main goal is Spectacular right now.
100%.
And you know, I'm trying to juggle that with also juggling 2 jobs at the same time. Yeah. So it's been like very hectic because I got some
the true Peter Parker lifestyle.
Yeah, I've got like actors asking me like, hey, so do you have some of the sides up that you want us to do? I'm like, yes, just let me get off my job and then I'll do this. And then it's been just hectic. So I'm you know, I've had like people like messaging me and I'm just like, I can't respond. I'm doing this. And then I'm like, so it's been very, very difficult juggling everything. So
you're talking to a person and people that completely understand. Like, we're all in that boat. We're all juggling the crap out of our lives, our day-to-day lives, and then also trying to put our all into this project. So keep going. Like, again, I understand you're busy and you should be, because, you know, this project is as important to you as it is to me and as it is to all the fans who want to watch it. So yeah, keep finding the balance. It's not easy at all. And sometimes things have to be sacrificed, but you know why you're doing it and you know what it means for you. So like, I support you, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is more of a personal question. You have any other interest other than, you know, TV, film, Spider-Man, comics? You know, what are some of your other interests you have?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's interesting too. Like, I don't know. I do know, but so much of my interests are in acting, are in filmmaking, are in directing and writing and stuff. Like, that is so much a part of who I am. That's why I feel so lucky to do this project, because I can it is my who am I. Because not only is a lot of my backstory personally kind of like tied into season 1, but also so much of my interests and my career even are able to be all applied at like once. I'm able to do like 5 things that I love doing and can do well, all in this one project. So for that, all the things that we discussed, but watching movies falls in that line. So I guess I like drawing as well. I did a lot more when I was younger and I was really good at it. I haven't done as much now, but I still always love just like drawing, just turning off my brain and drawing. I'm really into like philosophy. I really love like thinking, philosophy and psychology. A lot of like my initial approach to season 1 was Carl Jung and you know, his theories and study, psychoanalysis and path of individuation and all that. So a lot of those more philosophical and psychological interests have poured into the artistic expression in this project and others. I just like learning. People, as an actor, I love people, and I feel like I'm able to love people more now than ever. I've always loved people, but you know, then there was that thing of just, you know, being lonely and choosing to be alone. And just how I just felt so cut off from the people around me and from my relationships. And now I realize like those are the most important things. And like every second that we have is the most important thing. And to just be able to pour into my relationships in the way that I'm able to do now mean the world. Because I'm by no means the most important person, and I like I like showing other people how important they are to me and to the world. So like, yeah, just diving into my relationships and talking just like this. Like clearly I love talking. There's been like plenty of moments people will just see me talking for 10 minutes at a time where I could have just answered that question in one sentence. And it's just like, I just love exploring humanity. So I love sports as well. Lots of things. I'm pretty multifaceted, and it all somehow ties into like just this one interest of people. But yeah, in terms of like you, and like maybe like a little advice I would give to you as like a starting actor is like continuing to find mentors and people who are, more experienced than us so that we can learn. And then recognizing that like take that same obsession with what it is that you love in acting or filmmaking, and you're just creating, and tune that into life all around you so that you're not missing it, and let every moment be a moment that you can learn. There's at any moment, at any given moment in the real world and in the people around you, there's something vital to learn, and there's something vital that they're trying to tell you. All it takes is just for you to listen, for you to actually hear them. And that's probably the most powerful thing that we can do as actors and as people, especially in today's world. I think we need that more than ever. Everybody's trying to talk over each other and trying to show how they're right. But what people don't get is that everyone actually just wants to be listened to. And if we did that first, then there would be way less separation and adversity. So be a student of life. Ultimately, you're never gonna be a master. We're on the quest for mastery in what it is that we're doing, this field. But you're a teacher and a student at the same time. So be a student of life.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to wrap up the podcast. I had such a great time talking to you today.
Me too, man. Thank you.
I would love to have you on again.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it once the crowdfunding campaign's out, or even the show's out or something. Like, let's get back on when we're in the swing of things, and we could talk about so much more. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I have a model coming back for part 3.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would definitely love to have you for crowdfunding. We get that as much exposure as we can get.
Awesome.
But yeah, I really love talking to you today. Thank you for being on the stream. Well, the podcast, not really stream, but thank you for being on the podcast. And I think I think your show is going to be great. I'm excited for it, like I've said before, and I've said like so many times throughout this whole episode. But yeah, thank you for being here. And like I said, it was great having you, and I would love to have you again.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hopefully you got something from it, and definitely stay tuned. There's so much more to come, and it truly is going to be world changing, to say the least. It's going to be a very special project, and tune into Kevin's project and all the guests that he have coming in, because every one of these people, like I talk to them, every day, new people, and every single one of these people that are doing a Spider-Man project right now are doing it for such beautiful and pure reasons. And all they want to do is to be heard and to share some truth with all of us. So the more we can support each other like this, and you having me on, I think the better the world's going to be, and the better we're going to be. So thanks, man.
All right, we're out, guys.